the South China Sea, where storm clouds gather and the world holds its breath. This is no ordinary stretch of water. Here, global power struggles and ancient rivalries collide, and the outcome could reshape the future. The South China Sea is now a global flashpoint, a region where tensions simmer just below the surface and the stakes could not be higher. Here, China's sweeping ambitions collide head-on with international law, challenging the established norms that have governed the seas for decades. At the center of this storm are China and the Philippines, locked in a high-stakes struggle over disputed territory, vital resources, and ultimately, the future of the global order itself. Trillions of dollars in trade flow through these strategic waters every year, making stability in the region absolutely vital for the health of the world economy. The South China Sea's abundant resources, teeming fish stocks, vast oil reserves, and natural gas, raise the stakes even higher, fueling competition and conflict. For the Philippines, this is not just a political issue, but a matter of sovereignty and survival. Generations of Filipino fishermen have depended on these waters for their livelihoods and way of life. Manila is determined to defend its rights through diplomacy and international law, standing up not only for itself, but for smaller nations everywhere who face similar challenges. The dispute has now moved to the United Nations, transforming what began as a regional conflict into a global test of the rules-based international order. The Philippines seeks broad international support, appealing to allies and global institutions, while China insists on resolving matters through bilateral talks, creating a diplomatic deadlock that is difficult to break. The world is watching closely, as the outcome of this standoff will shape not only peace and security in Asia, but also the rule of law on the world's oceans for decades to come. The question remains, will international rules and agreements prevail, or will sheer power and military might dictate the future of the seas? The answer to this question will define the next era of global politics, setting a precedent for how nations resolve disputes in an increasingly interconnected world. The Philippines has taken its fight to the United Nations, seeking to bring global attention to its ongoing dispute in the South China Sea. By challenging China on the world stage, the Philippines is not only defending its own interests, but also raising critical questions about the future of international order. At the UN, the Philippine representative delivered a powerful speech, condemning China's refusal to accept the 2016 arbitral ruling. The representative framed this defiance as a direct threat to international law and the rules-based system that underpins global peace. Ambassador Noel Novicio positioned the Philippines as a steadfast defender of peace, justice, and the global system, drawing a sharp contrast with China's unilateral actions in the disputed waters. The speech was carefully crafted to rally global opinion, urging other nations to recognize the broader implications of China's defiance and to stand together in defense of international norms. In response, China rejected the tribunal's authority outright and accused the Philippines of causing environmental harm in the region, a claim that Manila quickly refuted, presenting evidence of China's own destructive island building and ecological damage. This heated exchange exposed the deep and growing divide between the two nations and highlighted Manila's determination to stand up to aggression, no matter the odds or the size of the adversary. By elevating the dispute to the UN, the Philippines has transformed it into a test case for the effectiveness and credibility of international law in resolving major conflicts. The world must now make a choice, either uphold the agreed-upon rules that maintain peace and order, or allow powerful nations to ignore them, setting a dangerous precedent for future disputes. The Philippines' bold move has forced the issue onto the global agenda, ensuring that the world cannot look away. The outcome of this diplomatic battle will set a lasting precedent for how international disputes are addressed and resolved in the years to come. The stakes could not be higher, as the world watches to see whether justice and international law will truly prevail. China's outright rejection of the 2016 arbitral award, which ruled against its expansive claims in the South China Sea, has become the central obstacle to achieving lasting peace and stability in the region. The South China Sea remains a flashpoint, with military ships and artificial islands symbolizing the ongoing tensions and unresolved disputes. The International Tribunal's ruling invalidated China's sweeping nine-dash line, but Beijing dismissed it outright, undermining the authority of the international legal order and setting a troubling precedent for global governance. Under President Marcos Jr., the Philippines is more determined than ever to keep the ruling alive, consistently publicizing China's non-compliance and rallying international support for its cause. Manila's strategy is clear: remind the world that this dispute is about upholding principle and international law, not just about territory or resources. More countries, especially within Southeast Asia and beyond, now openly support the Philippines, calling on China to respect international law and abide by the tribunal's decision. This growing coalition of nations strengthens Manila's diplomatic hand and increasingly isolates Beijing on the world stage. The goal is to steadily raise the diplomatic and reputational costs of China's continued defiance, making it harder for Beijing to ignore international pressure. By keeping the issue alive in global forums like the United Nations, the Philippines hopes to make a rules-based solution more attractive and ultimately unavoidable for China. It's a patient, determined, and strategic effort to ensure that international law truly matters and is respected by all. The world is watching closely, waiting to see if the rule of law will ultimately prevail over power politics in the South China Sea. The Philippines is campaigning for a non-permanent seat on the UN Security Council for 2027-2028. This is a strategic move to counter China's influence and elevate Manila's voice in global security. A seat would let the Philippines shape the conversation on maritime law and peace. Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo says this would give Manila a stronger platform to defend its interests. The campaign signals the Philippines' commitment to using every diplomatic tool to protect its sovereignty. Winning the seat would validate its strategy and strengthen its position in the South China Sea dispute. Manila must convince the world it's a responsible, constructive actor. Success would be a major victory for Philippine diplomacy. The Philippines' case at the UN is grounded in real-world harassment at sea. Filipino fishermen are routinely blocked and chased by Chinese vessels, threatening their livelihoods. Manila has documented aggressive tactics, water cannons, dangerous maneuvers, even collisions, by Chinese ships. These actions violate international law and aim to intimidate the Philippines into giving up its outposts. Despite the risks, the Philippines continues patrols and resupply missions, refusing to be bullied. Each incident risks escalation, but Manila remains resolute, asserting its rights while seeking peaceful solutions. By highlighting these incidents, the Philippines turns a legal dispute into a human story, making its case urgent and compelling. The world is being asked to act before the situation spirals further. The Philippines is no longer alone in its stand against China. The United States, Japan, Australia, the UK, France, and Germany have all voiced support for the 2016 ruling and freedom of navigation. This backing is the result of Manila's revitalized diplomacy under President Marcos. The dispute is now seen as a global challenge, not just a bilateral issue. Support includes joint military exercises and patrols, boosting the Philippines' capabilities and sending a clear message to Beijing. This international cooperation adds real deterrence against further Chinese aggression. A united front makes it harder for China to ignore the issue. The goal: raise the costs of defiance and push China toward negotiation. The world's support is both symbolic and practical. The Philippines is leveraging its long diplomatic history in its Security Council campaign. Foreign Affairs Secretary Manalo highlights the country's founding role in the UN and decades of peacekeeping. The Philippines frames itself as a champion of equality, self-determination, and peaceful dispute resolution. Its legacy as a responsible global citizen strengthens its case for a Security Council seat. Manila promises to be a principled voice for smaller states and a defender of international law. This message resonates with many nations concerned about the erosion of global norms. The campaign is about more than a seat. It's about reinforcing the Philippines' identity as a principled leader. Nearly a decade after its legal victory, the Philippines is being urged to revive the 2016 ruling as a living tool of policy. Experts recommend Manila seek a UN General Assembly resolution calling on China to comply, following the example of Mauritius. While not legally binding, such a resolution would carry significant moral and political weight. A strong vote would show global consensus and could be followed by a request for an International Court of Justice advisory opinion. The goal isn't immediate compliance, but to steadily increase the cost of China's defiance. Sustained pressure could eventually make negotiation more attractive to Beijing. With growing support and a determined government, now is the time for a renewed diplomatic push. The aim: turn a legal victory into real-world respect for Philippine rights. The Philippines-China showdown is a defining moment for Asia and the world. If China can ignore a binding ruling, it sets a dangerous precedent for global order. Southeast Asian nations are watching closely. Manila's success could empower others to defend their sovereignty. Failure would embolden Beijing and discourage resistance. The dispute is also a key front in the US-China rivalry, shaping the future balance of power in the Indo-Pacific. The world must decide: defend a system based on law or let power erode it. The Philippines' struggle is a test for the entire international community. The choices made now will shape the future for generations.